So let's come back. Let us start the discussion on today's new thing, that is 24th July 2019. In the last 2 days, we have discussed about legislature, executive, and then judiciary. Today, let us do the micro test answers on this, and then we will go to the 100 days program and we will discuss on that. What is our plan of working? In the micro test, we shall develop the capabilities to write the answers. In the case of the macro test, we shall be able to argue. It means the questions will be simple and straight in the micro test, where we need to improve the content and ideas. And in the macro test, we shall be able to improve our abilities to present various perspectives on various challenging questions. This is what our strategy is. So let us see 180 days questions, micro test which has happened yesterday. The first is explain the role of governor in state administration. Governor in state administration. So when we talk about the role of governor in state administration, let's understand few things here. He is not asking you, is governor an agent of the center? He is simply asking you what is the role of the governor with regard to state administration is concerned. So it means how shall we organize this question? We shall be able to talk about executive, yes or no. So the relations of the governor vis-a-vis the executive, vis-a-vis the legislature, vis-a-vis the judiciary. So this entire state administration, it means we get executive, legislature, and judiciary. And also we can add a point how he is important with regard to center-state relations. This is also part of the administration. So, with regard to executive, he is the constitutional head of the government, appointment of chief minister, council of ministers, and then ensuring that the administration carries out in accordance with the provisions of the constitution, and is the chancellor for the universities. All this comes over here. When we go to the legislature, a bill becomes an act. Bill becoming an act, obviously the governor has a role. And in this case, he addresses, gives the priorities of the government to the legislative members, and then ordinary bill, money bill, what is his role related to that? And in this case, state administration, we also have certain special responsibilities to the governor. What are they with regard to the scheduled areas, tribal areas, etc.? Coming to judiciary, appointment of judges, he has a special role. And in center state relations, you know that governor can reserve a bill for the consideration of the President of India. Governor also can recommend for imposition of President's rule. And governor can be an important point of administration during President's rule. So this all comes into play whenever we talk about state administration. See the scope of the question, it is too broad. Now, most of you gets confused how to start introduction to this. Don't worry much about introduction. State directly that governor is an head of constitutional head of the or constitutional head of the state government. As simple as that, you can start the answer. But when you are closing it, so the governor role has become highly controversial with regard to state administration is concerned. It is seen against the spirit of federation sometimes, and sometimes he is called as a connecting link between the center and the states. Few other times his wisdom has to guide the state government. So it depends more on the personality of the governor and also the central government and state government's relations. That's how you can conclude your answer as. Whenever you are concluding an answer, give an opinion on that particular question. And in this case, whenever we are talking about the governor's role in the state administration, so you can talk about what are the recent events. Connecting to current affairs is most important. So Karnataka, governor of Karnataka, he has sent a message to the speaker, to the legislature to conduct no confidence motion ASAP. So, or he has fixed some time. So it means the governors violating their particular constitutional role and taking an activism, is this appropriate or not? This can be another area which can be asked as a question this year. And the second, in Arunachal Pradesh, governor's role has become controversial and then he was transferred from there. And what are the recent issues in Uttarakhand with regard to the dismissal of the government over there? So try to see the controversial role of the governor. So, with regard to mains, they will not ask you about what is the role of the governor, what are the controversies related to the role of the governor. That's what we need to talk about. The major controversies are related to appointment and removal of the governor. Is governor's office a constitutional office, or governor's office is just an agent of the center? So center believes that governor has to listen to them. And the next is, with regard to state government is concerned, the Supreme Court has clearly stated that it's a constitutional office that has to be respected for its dignity. So in this case, appointment and removal. So in whenever the government changes, they want to change the governors. So Sheila Dikshit, she was removed as the Kerala governor, or she resigned before being removed. Mr. Narayanan, he resigned before he was removed from West Bengal. So every government expects the governors to change immediately after the government changes. So the second is functionality of the governor. So, what are the controversies? We see it from the dimension of the federalism, dimension of democracy, and dimension of independence of the governor's office. From these dimensions, we critically analyze the functionality of the governor. So, in your micro test, you got the question about the role of the governor to make you understand, think on the content part. Now, in the main examination, you can get a controversial question. So, the governor is more seen as an agent of center and a blot on the Indian federalism. Critically analyze. That's how a question can be framed as. The next question asked over here is discuss the various conditions under which an ordinance can be promulgated and evaluate its impact on the spirit of democracy. So, when this question is given, discuss the various conditions under which an ordinance can be promulgated. So, you know what are the conditions stated in Article 123 and 213. So, in this case, on 123, it talks about the ordinance making power of the union government. 213 talks about the ordinance making power of the state government. So, there are two sub questions in it. One is conditions under which ordinance can be made. One is when both the houses are not in session. Next, or either of the house is not in session. It is either of these conditions, ordinance can be passed by the legislature. Second, the legislature shall not be prorogued to make an ordinance. There has to be an emergency situation to make an ordinance. So, under these conditions, we can make ordinances. So, what are the Supreme Court judgments? Wadhwa case, all the Cooper's case you have, you talk about that, and then critically evaluate the ordinance making function and evaluate its impact on spirit of democracy. The spirit of democracy is prevention of the concentration of power and authority. In this context, ordinance power, which is a lawmaking power which was given to executive, which is originally belongs to legislature, is violation of the principle of checks and balances, and also the separation of powers. So that's why that is against the spirit of democracy. But however, to meet exigencies, it has to be sparingly used. But however, it's being more misused than used. So what are the conditions, examples where it got misused that we talk about? So that's why who has to have a greater responsibility with ordinance? It has to be by the President of India. The President of India has to take the responsibility and has to ensure that it functions properly. Or the governments do not resort to ordinance making just as a routine. It has to be an exceptional authority. That's how we need to talk about it. The intention of the 52nd Amendment to the Constitution of India was to strengthen parliamentary democracy, but it has failed to curb unethical political defections critically evaluated. So this question, it is about anti-defection law. When they are talking about 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act, remember here, always we need to understand what are the sub questions which are being asked. So he asked two sub questions in this. So the purpose of the 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act and critical evaluation of the 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act. The 52nd Amendment Act has introduced the 10th schedule, which provided for an anti defection law. According to this, any person elected from one political party it resigns to the same or do not follow the whip or he tries to violate or resigns to the membership, do not follow the whip, or violates the philosophy of that political party, or acts against to the interests of the political party in the on the floor of the house, then he can be disqualified under anti-defection law. Critical evaluation, when we get to it, we need to talk about speaker's role, the partisan behavior of the speaker. So here we can give examples from existing Karnataka to Andhra Pradesh to Telangana, where the speakers are more partisan. And also Shivraj Patil days, the particular provision authority of the speaker is getting misused. In this context, the recent words of Vice President of India with regard to the defection that there has to be a clear timeline within 3 months, a decision has to be made on defection. You can talk about that. And the second thing is the defections in the form of mergers are taking place today, and these mergers are defections over a period of time. So all the members do not defect at a single point of time, they defect over a period of time. So that has been accepted once together. All these defections are accepted as a merger at a single point of time. That's what happened in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana state. Those points we need to keep in mind. Third is anti-defection law has strengthened the political party at the cost of the freedom of speech of its members. The members are unable to speak against the political party now for the fear of defection, and they have to parrot the votes of the political party. That is another criticism. And with regard to speaker's role, second ARC has clearly stated that the responsibility has to be given to the election commission. All these points you can talk in critical evaluation of this. So these are the three questions which are been given to you as part of the yesterday's test. So now, what did we understood? Whenever a question comes up, what are the steps we are going through? First step is, what is the question scenario? It means, is it trying to ask a challenge or a discussion or particular static points? When it is a static question, you need to talk more about the points which are there in the text. But any question, we shall generate answers with linking them to the current affairs. And the first is think the scenario. It means as many wider perspectives you can bring it to the table. Second is see the sub questions. Always answer all the sub questions. That is the second part. And the third part is whenever you are connecting to the current affairs or functionality of an office. So current affairs always has to direct you the functionality. It means, let me put it this way, statically saying this is what it has to be in the constitution, this is what is the judgment of the Supreme Court, is that letter is followed in the spirit on the ground or not? Ordinance letter to meet emergency or exigency situations, in spirit, is it being followed on the ground or not? That analysis can be done only by quoting the examples. That is the third thing. And fourth thing is, always quote your opinion at the end whenever they ask you to evaluate. So these four steps you need to master. First, think on the scenario. Based on the scenario building, you start an introduction, and this introduction has to be simple and straight. See the sub questions and try to answer every sub question. And third is, whenever you are answering about the functionality of a given institution, always talk about the critical events that have shaped that institution and also judgments of the courts related to it. And if you can connect them with recent current affairs, it gives you much value addition. And for every topic, whenever you are writing an answer, make an opinion surrounding it. This is what I can put it as.